Frank, hi, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, William. Nice meeting you. Hi.
Nice to see you too. Nice to see you too. Do you mind giving us a bit of an introduction, Frank, on who you are, what you do, what brought you to the podcast, all of that?
Sure. Sure. So my name's Frank Hermann. I'm based out of Zurich, Switzerland. I'm a Swiss and German national. I'm an MD by training, and I've been working as an MD for over 10 years with board certifications in cardiology and internal medicine, and then decided to leave the world of patient care, direct patient care behind, and went into the industry and have been working in the industry with larger pharma companies and smaller biotech companies over the past 15, 18 years in various roles, medical affairs roles, clinical roles, commercial roles. And again, I'm currently in the oncology space, and we've been connected through a colleague of ours who's been so kind to introduce both of us. So I'm really pleased and eager to be able to contribute to your podcast here today and to tell a little bit about my humble experiences from the past few years.
I'm really excited to have you on. I know that this will be valuable given the conversations we've had in the build up and obviously Anita putting us in touch. Frank, let's kick off with a bit of background into how you first got into the life sciences. So what first brought you into the industry and what keeps you passionate about what you do?
Yeah, right. So, as I mentioned, I'm a medical doctor. So, what's been driving me for my decision there was to support and help patients. Now, what drew me into industry and pharma industry is the opportunity to impact patient care on an even much broader scale, which we're able to do. And what really keeps me there passionate is actually bringing the innovative treatments to patients who really need them the most. We've been doing so over the past few years, and it's been great seeing these tangible outcomes of our work, working together with a team and delivering the results and providing access for patients to life-changing treatment is still remains one of my key motivations as of today.
Anything in particular that's really exciting you about what's going on in the space at the moment, what you're doing, the work you guys do?
Well, I think in the space of oncology, the immune oncology is particularly interesting right now. I think we see the second generation of immune oncology therapeutics, combination treatments, and also with the advent of understanding more about the microbiome. I'm personally really thrilled to learn more about prospects of how we can support further disease modifications through applying them to learning about how our microbiome impacts disease and also different treatments along the way.
How about in terms of the teams you lead at the moment? Anything in particular there that's really lighting you up and exciting you?
Yeah, I think what I'm really interested in is working with them at the sort of the intersection of having the scientific innovation and making the patient impact, and doing this together with the diverse talents with the teams we do is really thrilling. I honestly like working together with with the professionals with various backgrounds and perspectives because that really helps to bring different viewpoints into how we can channel our efforts towards the patient and patient care.
When you say impact for patients, like what in particular in there is of interest to you, and what kind of impacts are you seeing?
Well, I think the impact on patients is when you're able to provide treatment options for patients who do not have any other more options. They run out of options in so-called compassionate use programs or pre-approval access programs where patients are able to gain access through various ways to your product, and you're receiving the feedback that there was no alternative left. That is particularly thrilling and exciting to see how you're able to really impact patients' life on a daily basis.
For you, going from the sort of the practice, if you like making the change into what you do now, what were the big changes from you going from being a medical doctor and then jumping into what you do now? How's that perception, if you like, of things, or not even just the perception, the reality of it different for you?
Right. Yeah. I think the reality is different because, well, you work in a setting that is completely different. As a medical doctor, you're trained to be the individual who's then being assigned a patient and to really honestly take care of the patient, to do it to your best ability. to ask and consult with your colleagues, but basically you're a lone fighter there to help your patient and it's his or her families achieving the best possible outcomes. And whereas in the pharma world, what I really like is the team's effort. We are really working more collaboratively together, and you have various functions and talents that you work with. I think you could not only do it with a medical training. You need the commercial, the market access specialist, the clinical development scientists. So everyone is appreciated along the way. And then, of course, it's also externals or regulatory colleagues that we're working with, and other external stakeholders like FDA, EMA, that are really there as well to support us all in making a difference for patients in every day.
That must have been a real shift in mindset for you when you first made the change, or I assume it must have been. What were the big sort of mindset shifts, if you like, when you had to go from that world to the pharma world?
Think what was a big shift is really starting to see the benefit of the team structure and ensuring you understand each team's members' different diverse background profile and what he or she brings to the table, and to be able to listen to all of those voices and ensure we streamline this across a common goal of in the end eventually driving the impact for patients to a positive side. So it's been a lot more interactive than what I previously had when working as a doctor, where you are basically the lone fighter for your patient. And it has been a more collaborative and I think even a fun way, if I can say that, specifically when I look back at some of the teams that have been building over the past 3 years, even across different time zones and remote places. That's been something that's been really exciting for me as well, to be able to achieve something together in a larger team is, for me personally, even more rewarding than achieving it yourself, when you basically have the 1 + 1 = 3 attitude and the level of engagement from everyone. And it's also more fun than to celebrate the results and the achievements all together.
Talk to us a bit about that. What inspires you or lights you up around leading a team or leading strong teams?
What I really like about the teams is ensuring we all are on a common mission. We all serve a greater purpose of providing benefit to the patient. What I like is as well to learn from each team member. I would say I'm a little curious about the person's background, about what he or she brings to the table, and how we are able to come up with innovative solutions and aspects that we didn't consider if we wouldn't be in a team. So I think that to me is a very motivating, when you are able to use the diverse aspects of viewpoints and integrate them into a common goal and drive that forward, where you ensure that everyone is on the same agenda, knows what he or she has to do, but we see different angles and different viewpoints that bring and make a solution often even better.
I've been through coaching programs and things like that in the past where they talk about curiosity being a superpower, and it's come up a few times from leaders talking about the pointing the curiosity towards the people that you lead and really understanding what drives them. You've just mentioned curiosity about the people that you work with. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about where this curiosity takes you in terms of when you're looking at developing that team, and how you tap into that to get the most out of people? Does that make sense?
Right. It does. It does. Well, I think, you have to start first. When you start to build up a team, you have to ensure, first and foremost, you have the right job descriptions and everyone knows what he or she has to contribute with regards to the overarching mission and the objective of what we're trying to achieve. So I think that is one important element of creating and making sure you have the right job description there. And then I think it's about the diverse backgrounds that I think is really interesting, and I'd like to use that in the team composition to ensure that everyone has the same background, but it's a sort of a complementary aspects that are we're able to consider that the team members would work collaboratively together and could benefit from one's other experiences, and so would be able to help each other out and excel. And as I mentioned, the 1 + 1 = 3 equation drive bigger results than if they would do individually. One important aspect of doing so for me is, besides the diverse background and hiring the right people, which I think is always the big question here, is also leading the teams in a fashion so that you can take them from a standard team to a high performing team. One key feature for me here that I've learned over the past few years has been the authenticity of who you are, and to show that to your team members as well. And where the word curiosity comes in is, for me, it is an fact of life that we don't just work together, but we spend a lot of our daily hours together. So the curious aspect and the authentic aspect is as well that you share parts of your daily life with the ups and downs with the team members, and that you inquire as well what their worries are and what's currently going on. So the time for personal connection to me is an important aspect, because it allows a set for this authenticity, which I believe is vital importance nowadays to keep us all healthy and sane in this environment, and to not only focus purely on work aspects, but the surrounding aspects of everything as well, the psychological well-being, personal challenges that I think need to be taken into consideration as well when leading teams, and doing so successfully and bringing them onto the next level of becoming high performance teams.
Nice. And this word authenticity comes up a lot these days. What for you is somebody, how does somebody demonstrate their authenticity? What would I be seeing from Frank in, I don't know, in a team meeting that demonstrates you're being authentic?
Right. Well, look, I'm trying to be myself by expressing what's going on in my day and what my worries are besides the work aspect. Some things that are going on, like personal issues or personal situation, birthday celebrations, sports injuries, things that, keep you busy, going to the physio, things like that. I are really important to share, because I think that's what you can expect, at least from me, and what I am trying to instill as well in those team meetings, that we are really more than just work. For us, it's that we function, and we function optimally. A lot of factors need to work out well, and we need to be healthy. We need to not worry about a set family or other aspects. So I think expressing and sharing the human side and expressing who you are is really important. As I expressed to you my motivation of bringing patients the next solution, that is something that I will also do in my team meetings. And I will be authentic about that as well, and trying to achieve the goal and even going beyond that goal together with my team.
So me sharing with you before we started the podcast that I spent my weekend planting lavender in the garden. So this, does it count?
That counts, absolutely. That's definitely a part. And I'm honestly not the expert on lavender. I have a few lavender. I have actually a lavender plant which is out on my balcony, but it's not doing so well. So I'm not going to ask you right now what I have to do in order to get it to regrow. But maybe that's a conversation for our next podcast.
Yeah, we'll hold off for a few weeks and see if ours survives first. So Frank, for you, when it comes to leading teams remotely, I know a lot of your leadership has been with remote teams. Take us through some of your core principles when you are leading teams remotely.
Right. I think I can give a good example of having done so during the COVID pandemic. During the COVID pandemic, I was working as an executive director for the new markets development, where our goal was we had to drive product launches and market expansions in areas such as Latin America, Middle East, Russia, even at that point in time. That was even well before the war, Israel, Turkey. So we had a vast geography, and the scope was to build up a team to do so on the local level. So we started with the hiring process, which of course was something that had to be done during COVID as a completely remote fashion. And maybe that's even a separate topic to talk about what the challenges in itself are of hiring a team that you don't see in person, that you only have the two-dimensionality of your screen, the voice, and maybe some nodding along the way, but you don't have other aspects that we humans need to assess how we interact with one another. So that was said as a challenge in itself. But then I think the most important learning from working and being successful as a remote team was really critical when, as during COVID, the momentum changed as well from the traditional approaches of being connected face to face more towards in a virtual setting. So even with regulatory authorities, KOLs, engagement, and on-site trainings were not possible anymore. So we had to shift very quickly into virtual space using digital engagement strategies, ensuring that we are able to still communicate and to be effective as such. One other thing that I found really important was the communication. And it had to be the frequency even of communication that was, I think, even increased during that time period to ensure there's no ambiguity on what we're trying to achieve. Everyone knows the scope and goals. But then within this crazy environment where you're only at home, it is very important as well to empower the local teams and to create the spaces for the teams to use the global strategies and adapt it locally. So the communication part was a really important one, either through virtual meetings through Zoom or Teams, but then also using technology, creating spaces, virtual spaces to share documents, to work on documents in an asynchronous fashion was really important. So that to me, I think were some of the key aspects and still are of having and leading a successful global team. And as I just mentioned as well, in the virtual setting, there's for me even a stronger emphasis on the mental well-being and the health of people. So the challenges that we're facing are, of course, much different when we're working across the globe. And so over communication, having direct line to your line managers, but also allowing people to share their daily lives, to sharing their impressions with other team members is really important to have and to drive a successful team.
And your experience with this, Frank, goes much further than just a hunch that you think that this is valuable because you've studied this, right?
It's funny that you say that, and that's maybe relaying back to some of the previous conversations that we had. It was actually when I did my MBA, I had a master thesis. During that time period, I was working for Roche, and I decided to take on my MBA master thesis on working across different time zones. And that was my master thesis, and it was a really interesting aspect of learning real life how working across different time zones and managing the merger between Roche and Genentech at that time impacted people's lives from a leadership, but also from a collaboration perspective. So some of these learnings, of course, I've been taking on in my daily leaderships, in my daily interactions with people. But some of these learnings were really important, I think, for me and even for others. I said the report of the thesis ended up at the CEO's desk, which I was very proud of having achieved something meaningful and that people take notice of what we're doing and what pain points we're also highlighting at, so that we try to make work life better for everyone, specifically when working remotely.
Yeah, I love that. What would you say the biggest surprise was that came out of that?
Biggest surprise. I think what was really important when you want to work effectively across time zones, that leadership needs, you need structural solutions, very clear, given facts, and you need a cultural understanding and adaptations. So that's basically, there's some, I'd say, key learnings that you have to take. For example, the um, in ensuring when you set up meetings that there's a rotating meeting schedule so that if you distribute, for example, the burden of early mornings versus late evenings in other time zones to people equally. So it's acknowledging where people are sitting on in the world, on where what time zone they're currently at. And that also means we need to acknowledge their time of the day and also their energy level. Someone that will always be working in the morning might be fresher off than someone who's already had 10 hours of meeting and as is at the end of his or her day makes a huge difference. So understanding and acknowledging that was, I think, an important learning. And then, as I said as well, I think it's about the structural solutions. You need to have some synchronous essentials and asynchronous capabilities, which means that not every interaction really requires a real-time participation, but you need to have robust documentation practices. You need to leverage collaborative tools in order to ensure people know what's going on and they can contribute over their workday. And I think these aspects are really, really important as well.
Interesting. So the ability to document everything and people can follow the steps, but at the same time, you still need you can't rely solely on that because then you don't get the engagement from people, you don't get the emotional buy-in, you don't get the emotional investment. So you have to find a way to balance the two of those.
Absolutely. As I said, this is more the technical aspect. And then, of course, as we're only working mostly then in a remote setting, there is the need as well for in-people meetings. These people need to meet from time to time if money, project, etc. allows, because that will allow for a greater trust within the teams. It'll allow for more collaborative work, and even sometimes you can address things more quickly if it is more crucial in an in-person meeting than if you do this remotely. So this has to be allowed as well. So it's about the flexibility of whatever you are trying to achieve and how urgent, of course, the project is that you want results for.
In your opinion, Frank, because bringing somebody new into a team like that can be tricky, and there are a lot of remote teams out there now that will hire somebody you'll never meet, or it'll be a long time before you meet in person. So how do you onboard somebody that's joining that team in an effective way so that they do feel included, they do feel connected, especially when you've got such a diverse range of
Yeah,
background?
thanks for bringing that up. I think it's very important that this process of feeling as part of a team, specifically when you're remote sitting across the world, is important. I would recommend having and setting up a structured onboarding program, something that really goes beyond the first couple of weeks, where ideally you get to be introduced to some of the key topics, but also to the key people. So you have one-on-one catch-ups, so you get to know the team members directly and you're able to run through a curriculum to be coming up to speed really quickly. My personal experience, what always helped was having a mentor or a buddy system. So not only your line manager who's there to help out and to provide guidance, but someone who takes on a new hire and you have someone with a connection point that is able then to introduce you to maybe other people or other topics and to get you up to speed. I always find is another nice way of making sure people feel part of the team. And then it's about creating opportunities for more informal connections as well, as I said before. So, for example, my team during the COVID pandemic, they even set up a WhatsApp group amongst themselves just for fun, talking about whatever they planted, what sports they played, or what was going on, just to sort of share more the daily lives. And I think that was also important so that they felt included into the teams as well. And one other thing we should never forget when we working with teams, and we even need to do this more remotely than when we have our teams at hand, is that we are able to allow for each team member to provide his or her input into the team. To also, they need to be able to showcase their expertise and to contribute to the projects, and that the team members will also be recognized for the work respectively, so that they feel cohesive and that they really feel it's a team effort and that they belong to this team effort and that they've contributed to this significantly.
And again, this isn't just your theoretical knowledge. You still are achieved some pretty impressive things during that period during COVID, despite the fully remote teams, despite not being able to meet people, despite all the cultural differences, right? Take us through a bit of that, what you managed to achieve.
That's true. So we were able to achieve over a time period of roughly 3.5 years, more than 50 product launches in the various countries, as I
Yeah.
mentioned, Latin America, Middle East. And that was, of course, with a huge team that we were able to do this. And it said it takes a village to get this all done, but this was very astonishing work that when we collaborate, when we set ourselves out for what we want to achieve, setting up the goals, what we're able to achieve on a global scale was truly impressive. So that to me has been the living proof that remote teams can work very effectively and can achieve things similar to having real teams on the ground and to working, even in working together in person can be similarly effective when you focus the virtual teams on the tasks. And yeah, that was quite impressive, I have to say.
I was once given a piece of advice, which was if you want to look like you do a great job, choose great clients. And now, when it comes to building teams, I think it's also true of if you want to be a great leader, pick great people, or pick people with the potential for greatness or development. So for you, how do you recruit great people? What are you looking for in people that are going to be part of those high performing teams?
Yeah, I think of course, that's probably the a class question of how you're going to achieve and getting the maximum out of the people. Well, first and foremost, I think it starts, of course, with what the people's motivation is. So I think I always feel I start with what drives you. What is your daily driver when you get up every day? What makes you work? What makes your clock tick? What makes your fire lit under your chair? I think that to me is where I usually start with to see what sparks in people. And then you try to evaluate through their past history of what they worked on, what I have done, and what experiences they bring to the table, and how those experiences can help propel the company's visions, team's objectives, what we're trying to achieve in all of that. And then I think the secret sauce is trying to find and sense the capabilities in people that you see something more in people than they might be able to see in themselves. So it's about developing people. And that's where I said it's the true interest in people that you need to have, where it's more than just the job. It's the lavender plantation, the other talents that are hidden, that are there, that might be indicators for what people are still capable of doing and how you can develop them and you can bring them forward and ensure they bring these creative ideas towards the table and to support the team in the common mission. So that's where I think this is the secret sauce goes. And then as a leader of such a team, for me, it's about the authenticity, about the listening to the people. What are they saying? Giving them the voice, giving them the space to grow as well is very important, and to reward them for their contributions, seeing them grow along the small little steps, because small little steps eventually will become bigger steps when we look from the far. And that's where I see this will lead to high performance teams, and at least that what I have been able to witness live from my own past experience.
Yeah, I love that, Frank. And as you talk through that, there's a piece of advice or something I was told at one time from one of my mentors, which was, "I've got a bigger vision for you than you have for yourself." And I think that's a really important thing for leaders to keep in mind. Is you have to see that the size of the possibility for the people that you're leading, because often they don't necessarily believe that of themselves. So you have to be the person that holds that vision for them, and then they can buy into your certainty for where they can go in the future, even if they don't necessarily believe it themselves.
Absolutely. And I think you have to give them the opportunities, the chances to be able to do that. I think that's one of the key aspects as well, where we need to have the possibilities to make them grow and to give them the space to grow in various roles and with various projects. That can be sometimes challenging, limiting as well, given our environment. But I am a firm believer that we can come up with creative solutions, and if we think long enough through it and we give talented people the chance to excel at those. So believing in them, sometimes pushing them into the cold water, but giving them also the possibility to hold their hands if they need to tell them you're there, really, I think is the key ingredient here to seeing greatness come and being developed in team members.
So if you were sitting here with somebody who's either an aspiring leader or someone that's rising through the ranks, has some responsibility for a team currently, building that experience, what advice would you have for them around building those genuine relationships and that sense of belonging amongst a team?
Right. I would say create spaces for the human connection and make this beyond your task, beyond your projects. As said, be curious, be authentic, and listen well. Those are the things that I think are key ingredients to um, a great leader.
Awesome. Frank, given everything that's going on in the world at the moment and the instability or the uncertainty of where things are heading, what's your take on where the industry's going like right now?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Well, I don't have here a magical glass or wand with me where I can look into the future, so no crystal ball from my side. I'm really sorry, I'm not able to do that. But I think I might want to sort of go back what I mentioned before, if that was COVID, because I want to more or less not tell and predict the future, but I want to express maybe a hope that I saw during COVID. And the hope that I saw in COVID that if we collaborate all better across different healthcare ecosystems, such as we have seen with COVID, where we saw rapid development of COVID vaccines, where industry, academia, regulators, and other healthcare systems aligned, and we had a one common purpose, we're able to overcome many, many more of our challenges that we're facing today. So I think we're trying to forget what these positive aspects came out of there, out of COVID. We're only seeing the negatives and that we're finally out of the social isolation and we work collaboratively more together. But I think this to me has been sort of the key learning that I saw specifically in our industry that we're able and that we're capable of doing. Now, you mentioned it's challenging at the moment, and it truly is. And we're seeing from the political perspective a more difficult situation than we were a couple of years ago. But I still think we as humans, we have the capabilities to collaborate, to come together, and to join our forces together for the greater good. If that greater good is the benefit of patients and patient care, I'm pretty sure we can do that.
Awesome. But what in particular are you watching in the industry right now that excites you? What developments, what things that are changing?
I mean, we are all seeing since COVID sort of the integration of digital technologies in healthcare delivery and more or less also in clinical development and how we're providing access and bring treatments more to patients. I think with the most recent advances in AI, large language models and tools that we're going to have in our hands, this will be very exciting to see over the next couple of years how this integrates towards shaping better outcomes for patients. And that's really exciting. Again, I have no crystal ball. I'm not sure where this is going, but I find it extremely thrilling to see this integration and the application of these models with in the healthcare segment. And as I said, there are various companies and solutions out there to eventually benefit the patient. I'm really curious and excited to see what comes out of that.
What do you think these kind of developments mean? Point the answer, I guess, most directly to what you know and the kind of teams you build. So, look, with the advancements, with the changes, what do you think it means for people trying to make their career in the kind of teams that you lead, for example?
So I would say if you nowadays you have to deal with AI and you have to get used and understand AI and its capabilities because if you're not doing it, someone else will do, and someone else will be better than you and will be able to achieve maybe greater goals and greater things than you do. So I that would be my suggestion. Get a look into AI, but I would also say we got to be critical of how we're using, how we're applying AI. There are various aspects of data privacy, data ownership, and then as well the confabulation of large language models that are part of the natural learning models. It's not something, badly intended part of how these models work and run. But those are critical aspects that at the end we still need a human evaluation of the outputs and a human assessment right now, whether or not this can be truly applicable or not. So we're not there yet that AI is controlling itself, but I hear there are tendencies going in that way.
Okay, interesting. So if somebody was going to go and learn more in AI, like you're suggesting, like where do you think, where would you steer somebody, and what would you steer them to go and learn more practically, like at the almost tactical level, like go do this course or go read this thing? Like what would you be telling people to do?
Good question. So I think there are several AI courses. There are some free courses online that you're able to get an introduction to what AI and the large language models are. I think everyone so far probably has used the one or the other AI tool. I'm not going to name any of them, but there are several models out there that are free of charge or off charge. So I think everyone has probably a different level of already being exposed to AI. So I do not think that there is a one solution fits all. So I would say it really depends whether or not you are the end user that is just trying to apply versus someone who is adept and able and willing to learn and dig a bit deeper about, for example, programming, who wants to start to program where AI can help as well. But I would say it's a bandwidth out there, and everyone should definitely try to use it in his or her daily lives to see what it is capable of doing. And for larger projects, of course, this has to be discussed within our industry, within our organizations, whether or not it's allowed. Sharing these data with external is something that to be evaluated. But I would say it's definitely something that we should consider in our tactical elements within our industry, as I mentioned before, clinical development up to medical affair and other areas. So I would say, be curious, be, looking out for what's the next big thing. And there are many different channels and ways to get that information. As I said, there are online courses, but you can also go to YouTube and other short video channels where people demonstrate their knowledge, or where you can get some examples of how they're using and applying the AI. But I would just say start doing it, go for it, and get your own individual learning curve, and expose yourself to the capabilities. But be always critical. It is not the golden egg. It is one way, and it has its downsides. This is where I think it's important that we keep the human checks and balance in place so that we are able to evaluate the outputs and not take everything plainly for granted.
Yeah, it's an interesting time of that intersection between knowing both the science, the biology, but then also having that AI literacy, the computer literacy, all that world coming together. And you can't get away with just the one anymore. You have to have an understanding of all of it if you're going to shape the future of your career.
Absolutely. I'd say, you have to have been exposed to that to look for the next thing. I'm not saying you have to have a course or a certification for a course, because probably when you finished your course a few weeks or months later, things will have advanced. But it's about the principles of understanding what and how large language models operate and what then the respective downsides are.
For listeners facing similar kind of leadership challenges as you've experienced in the past, what one piece of advice would you want to share? Would you want to leave people with?
I think we used the word this a couple times, but I really think they are really fitting. Be curious, be authentic, and be interested in the human connection. That's what I would say are the key ingredients to being successful.
Awesome. Frank, thanks so much for taking the time to share your wisdom with us. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, that you wanted to leave people with one final thought?
No, I think I just left you guys with my final thoughts. So thank you very much for the opportunity here, Will, and looking forward to reconnecting.
My absolute pleasure, Frank. And if anybody wants to continue the conversation, LinkedIn, I'm assuming, is probably the best place to get you.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Frank, thanks for taking the time. Pleasure.
You're welcome.
We'll speak again soon.
Thank you. Bye, bye, bye. Bye,
Take care.
everyone.
Bye bye.